standard form and we graphed in slope-intercept form yesterday. This is the form we did not graph in yesterday, but we're going to start off with it today. And I think this is the only one I have, so. That's a NAS. What form is this in? Yes, it is in point slope. And that's pretty convenient because the only thing we really need in order to graph is a point and the slope. Now, a lot of teachers, including me at one point, would teach the children how to turn this into slope-intercept. Because that's what we graph out of, slope-intercept. But I'm going to just show you how to graph out of this. Just keep in mind, look, one of the good things from point slope is that we can identify the slope. Which one of these numbers represents the slope? I1. Yeah, it's the 2. The m is always going to be in front of the x. So, and how should I write the 2 for slope? When I'm going to graph, so I know my rise and my run. You know that candy makes vision worse. Like if you have too much sugar, you can go into like sugar blindness. Or those are Cheetos. The Cheetos are also. Oh, that is sugar. I guess I'm blind too. Okay, and then yeah, like I wish I had more examples of this one, but luckily your assignment does on Khan Academy. I need a starting point. So in the past, our starting point was the y-intercept, but here it's just going to be another point on the graph. But I will point you to, no pun intended, to the formula. When I want you to notice something that is unique to point slope form. That x1 and y1, which are going to be the coordinates that we're going to extract, they both have a negative in front of the formula. So that means that when I pull the numbers out, the numbers that I think I'm looking at, I'm not really looking at. I'm looking at the opposite. So look at where x1 and y1 is. Based on what I'm trying to graph, what does it appear that x1 is? What number does it appear that is where x1 goes? It's just right in front of you on the paper still, even though I took it off the screen. This will come right after the x. Yeah, it looks like a -1, but when it comes to graph, it's actually going to be a 1. What number looks like it's where the y1 goes? You got to change the sign. That's all I'm trying to tell you to do is change the sign. 3. Yeah, it looks like it's a 3, but guess what? When it comes time to graph, it's not going to be a 3. It's going to be a negative. Point slope. When you get the point, change the signs. Isn't that what we did with the 1?
I just can't tell the difference.
You can't tell the difference between the forms? How did I know that this was in point slope? What came out off the screen and just slapped you in the face a couple of times and told you, hey, I'm point. The parentheses, yeah. So the point is at 1, -3. That's 1 to the right and 3 down. And since we learned about slope yesterday, the only difference is I'm going to start at this point. But once I start at this point, give me the 2 different paths that I can take to find the rest of the points. Not up to right 2. Up to right 1, good. That's ding, ding, ding. That's good. That's one of them. And down to left 1. Fantastic. You can do either 1, up to right 1, up to right 1. What was the minimum amount of points I recommended? 3. Good. But since I'm cooler than you are, I'm going to show off.
I don't like
Even though this form does not give me the y-intercept, if I were to be asked for the y-intercept, what would Inoshka say is the y-intercept? You want to ask Emilsi? Emilsi knows. No sé. ¿Dónde estamos cruzando el axis de la Y? You know, Nick?
No.
You can't tell where we're crossing the y-axis? It is -5. Thank you, Hannah.
Wait, what's negative?
The y-intercept, just fun random factoid that you'll never need it for the rest of your life. I just asked, like, not, look, the graph is done. We don't need to know where the y-intercept is. I just asked you just an additional question. And now that I'm looking at the graph, to make sure you understand conceptually what is a y-intercept, like I'm crossing the y-axis at -5. What form is this in? Yeah, standard. So we're back to standard. It's the least useful, but we'll also just we'll adjust and minimize the amount of points. From standard, you need to memorize those formulas I gave you, the little short ones, and let's identify A, B, and C. What's the A here? What's the B? And what's the C? So here we go, x-intercept. What was the formula for x-intercept? C over A, good. So a -8 over 1, which is -8. I'm going to touch the x-axis at -8, 0. Y-intercept though. That's slow. C over B. Oh, I thought you said -8 over B. No, yeah, C over B. Y-intercept is C over B. -8 over -1 is 8. 0,8. The only way you can really screw this up, besides not memorizing the formulas, is if you mess up the axes. So make sure -8, 0 is 8 to the left of the origin, and 0, 8 is 8 above the origin. After you go to the ruler store this weekend, tap your first ruler. You just connect the dots. Cap. No caps. The one thing that we did not use here at all is slope. We did not need to use slope. But just by looking at the graph now, what type of slope can you tell this has? ¿Qué tipo de slope? There's a positive slope. Yeah, it goes up, right, and down, left. You're going to want to watch these too, because I only have 2 of these. How is this different than the ones you've seen before? There's only one variable. Very good. And just to give you a sneak preview, give you something to compare this to, look at what's coming next. After this one. What's also going on here? Only one variable. First one only has an x, second one only has a y. These are special cases. There's not much math involved here. For those of you that fall into the category of, oh, well, I don't like math because I'm not good at it, no, I'm sorry. The most math you're doing here is counting. Okay, so watch. We talked about slopes, right? And up to now, we've only been dealing with positive and negative slopes, but I told you that there's 2 other types. What were the 2 other types of slopes? Well, 0 and undefined. That's these 2 that are coming up now. When you only have a y and there's no x, that's a 0 slope. When you only have an x, that's an undefined slope. But as far as the graph goes, you don't even need to know that. You would only need to know that if you were specifically asked. As far as the graphing goes, you only need to plot 1 point. But the thing is, you have to fight yourself on this one. Because when you think x, you think of x-axis, and what direction does the x-axis go? No, the x-axis does not go up and down. Yeah, the x-axis goes left and right, but guess what? The graph, when there's only an x, when there's no y, is going to be vertical. So the way that I remember it is say, okay, yeah, the x-axis goes left and right, cool. Let me find -3 on the x-axis, but then I'm going to draw a vertical line through it. Because if I drew a horizontal, then I would be touching all the x's. I don't want to touch all the x's. I only want to touch -3. If you have some vague recollection of last semester, when we did parabolas, you'll see this type of line again when we do axis of symmetry with parabolas. Fax machine. You don't get thirsty with those? How do you think this one's gonna look when there's only a y? Yeah, this one's gonna be horizontal. Find just 7 on the y-axis. Draw a horizontal line through it. No caps, just fine. You have to like lick your fingers after that because you could be like writing this down. You're watching. That's the important part. She's gonna Romero fix and chill tonight and watch these back.
Oh.
That's what all the cool kids do. To watch a movie? Means more. What form is this in? What form is this in? What form is this in? Trick question. Trick question. Trick question. Trick question. What form is this? What form is this in? It is not in any form. Is the y by itself? No. Do you see a parentheses? No. Are the x's and y's on the same side? No. So guess what? That means it's not in a form. So that means that you're going to have to be the one to put it in a form. So you pick. The two that I would say are most common are obviously slope-intercept, but then even standard. Since I taught you how to graph out of standard, I guess you could. If I wanted to put it in standard, I'd have to use my math skills to flip-flop these two. And that's fine, you could do that. But I'm actually going to live dangerously here. And I'm going to go to slope-intercept and get the y by itself. So if I were to divide by 4, everything gets divided by 4. So I would get 3 over 4x plus 1 is equal to y. Wait, but Mr. Romero, that's not slope-intercept. Yes, it is. Y is by itself. What's the slope?
1. No, 3 over 4.
3 over 4, good. What's the y-intercept? Now that I have a starting point at 0, 1, Alex, can you tell me distance and direction where I could go to find the rest of my points? His inner circle calls him Alex, so I'm part of that inner circle now, so I can call him Alex. Where can I go to find the rest of my points? Cassandra? Okay, that's a slope, but tell me where to go. Tell me, like, interpret that for me. So say over. Up 3 and right 4 or down 3 and left 4. Since I'm pretty close to the origin, I'll just do like one of each. So up 3, right 4, down 3, left 4. Let's keep my graph as small as possible. Once you go to the ruler store, you'll be able to connect the dots. The pencil store, the friend store. Yeah, capitalism at its best. Está bueno, está bueno. Any questions? All right, let's see if we can squeeze 4 in. 4 more in. What form is this in? Yeah, very good. It looks like standard, but it's not. It's slope-intercept. Why by itself? What's my slope of those? Oh. Good. Then the coefficient of x, that's your slope over. And then y-intercept is 0, -3. So put my starting point at -3. And then, I apologize for all the positive slopes, but okay, fine. This is another positive slope. What direction do I go? I'll have to rewrite 1, and I can do that as many times as I want. Or I could have gone down 3, left 1. And if you did it properly, all the points should line up. Say that again? No. What form is this in? This is not in a form. And I could make the argument that equally that this is just as easy to put into standard as it is slope-intercept. But I'm going to choose slope-intercept because this gives me one more chance to deal with a negative slope. I can tell the slope is going to end up being negative, so if I just divide by 3, I get negative x minus 12. Sarah, what's my slope? You want to ask Emilsi? Emilsi, no. No. That's my goal this year, is to get Emilsi to answer one question. So here, obviously, my first point is going to be 0, negative 4. But now with a negative slope and that rise and run, what are the two possible paths that I can take? Not up 1, right 1, no. Up 1, left 1, or down 1, right 1. Because I'm below the origin, I like to go up just to keep my graph small. So I can do this as many times as I want. Hope this is a great activity to do when you're bored. When you're bored, you just start graphing. And do Khan Academy. That's also fun. No caps. Any questions there?
No.
2 more. Here, Jason, I guess you were working ahead because you got to hear what form is this in. Yeah, it's not in a form. We don't have a form that has x by itself. So you have a choice. You could either solve for y, which you've been taught to do, or you would convert this into standard, which I'll go ahead and do that because I think it's easier. But you also run into a problem with standard. Stupid standard form. And that's that I showed you the easy way, which is to find the intercepts. What's A here? It is 1 good. What's B? And what's C? So see, like the issue here is when I find the x-intercept, which is C over A, it gives me 15. It doesn't fit on the graph I have. So you could either guess, or you can actually be creative and say, okay, well look, the y-intercept doesn't give me any issues. It's just 15 over negative 5, which gives me negative 3. I also gave you a formula for slope. So even though we don't normally use slope, what's the slope? How do you find slope in standard form? How do you find slope in standard form? Somebody that has a paper out in front of us on the first page, how do you find slope in standard form? It's negative A over B. Change the sign of A, so it'll be negative 1 over negative 5, which is the same thing as saying 1 over 5. So really, I could just do 0, negative 3, but then for my slope, go up 1 and to the right 5. I gave you a formula for slope in standard. It's negative A over B. Change the sign of A and then divide it by B. Negative 1 over negative 5 is 1 over 5 positive. Negative divided by negative is positive. I change the sign of A to negative 1. And what's negative 1 over negative 5? What's negative divided by negative? Positive. One more for the road. This one here, you can turn into either of the forms. I'll just go back to standard because I figured that would be easier for you guys. And the thing I like about this is it makes sure that you understand where A, B, and C are. Because when I ask you for A, what's A here? It is not 4. What is in front of the x? A is always in front of the x. What's in front of the x? -2. What's B? And what's C? So just real quick, the x-intercept ends up being 4 over -2, which is, I'm just speeding this up, is -2, 0. The y-intercept is 4 over 1, which is 0, 4. And then I just connect the dots. Any questions before we move on? Quiz on Monday. I'll send out the reminds now in a few minutes. No. Yeah.